What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another competitive guide. My name is Wolfe Glick. I'm the 2016 Pokemon World Champion, and today I'm here to walk you guys through a Pokemon that I think is very, very, very beautiful, first of all, just design-wise, and also very interesting. The Pokemon I'm talking about is Alolan Ninetails. It's the Alolan form of Ninetales, which is a Generation 1 Pokemon, and with Alolan Ninetales' new form, it gains the Ice and the Fairy typing while losing the Fire typing, which basically transforms it from... It actually just changes the role that it plays completely. So, what do you need to know about Alolan Ninetales? The main factor that Alolan Ninetales is going to be abusing is its access to Snow Warning. It's one of two fully evolved Pokemon in the format that gets access to Snow Warning, the other one being Ice Cream Cone. And Ninetales is like very interesting because it's very fast as well. And so the Ice and Fairy typing are pretty good offensive typings. Not the best defensive typing, but really access to Snow Warning in addition to Blizzard means Ninetales is actually a very viable Pokemon in the format. So looking at Ninetales, its move pool honestly isn't as deep as I would like it to be, but it gets access to Blizzard, it gets access to Freeze Dry, and it also gets access to Aurora Veil. Aurora Veil being a new move introduced in Generation 7 that serves as a Reflect and a Light Screen for both Pokemon on your team, but it can only be activated in Hail. That's the other kind of niche I would say Ninetales has, is this access to Aurora Veil. So, let's go ahead and jump into it. Guys, I just want to preface this by saying Ninetales is a Pokemon that at the moment, I thought pretty hard about this one, and at the moment, I only really came up with one set that I thought was, like, very, very, very good. And so I've got 3 sets here as usual, but I think this first one is the one that I think you should be starting with if you want to use Alolan Ninetales. I think other sets are viable for sure, but I think they mostly, like, I think most other sets that are viable will fill kind of specific niche roles on teams, and I think this is kind of like if you really love Alolan Ninetales, if you think it's amazing and you really want to use it, I would definitely recommend starting with this first set because again, I think the other sets, like I think Ninetales can do other things, but I think it should be mostly very specific niche roles that you need to have filled on a team. So I just wanted to preface that by saying, although there are 3 sets, this one is the most viable in my opinion. So EVs are really straightforward. 252 speed, max speed, 252 special attack, and 4 HP. I tested Ninetales a little bit. If you don't care about outspeeding Kartana, you can drop some speed, but you're not going to gain that much bulk, and you'll lose all speed ties to Kartana. So that's kind of why I want max speed. Max special attack because you have the Focus Sash. You're not really trying to survive attacks as... I mean, of course you're trying to survive attacks, but like in general, Ninetales is like low special attack, and so you're trying to increase it as much as possible so that it can actually do damage. And so I just want to give you guys a good general sense of how much damage to expect from Ninetales. So as you can see, it should be 2 at KOing Tapu Koko. It will take a lot in return from a Life Orb Thunderbolt, but Blizzard does about 50% to Tapu Koko. Other things, Freeze Dry does not OHKO Gastrodon, but it will do a ton of damage. It will OHKO Gyarados, I believe, which is nice. Yes. And I mean, depending on EVs, it could KO Gastrodon, but for the most part it can't. But like the fact that it does so much, and the fact that Gastrodon can't switch in because it'll probably take Blizzard or Hail damage, means that Freeze Dry is still a really great option versus a Pokemon like Gastrodon. And then lastly, this is how much it does to Kartana. So Kartana obviously will do a lot, but we have Focus Sash, and in return Blizzard plus a couple turns of Hail will KO non-specially bulky Kartana, which is pretty good in my opinion. So yeah, Calcs obviously are like, I was a little like, the thing is, because Ninetales is run as a more offensive Pokemon, and because it's run as more... It's like, basically, it's used not as a Pokemon that's trying to get OHKOs, but as a Pokemon that, like, if it can launch 3 Blizzards, you've done a good job. You know, if it can, like, launch a Blizzard, set in Aurora Veil, and then, like, switch out and save it for later, that's really good. So, I think generally with Ninetales, you want it to be hitting... Like, I think you want to force your opponent to switch into it. And, like, that's what's, like, good, because, like, Blizzard is such a strong spread move, especially when you consider it Freeze Trance, but even without that, like... Blizzard is such a strong spread move, and Hail chipping away at your opponent, I think Ninetales is really great when it forces the opponent to switch. So if your opponent leads Garchomp, or if your opponent leads Salamence, and then like they're forced to play defensively and Ninetales is free to attack, I think that's where Ninetales really shines. So obviously the Calcs, it's kind of hard to reflect that in the Calcs because you're like, okay, it doesn't do any damage, but really like Ninetales is a Pokemon that I think more than most Pokemon functions best as like part of a... Like, not when you think about it individually, but as more of a cohesive whole. Like, when you think about your team in general. That's like, where I think Ninetales really, really shines. So, I'll move on. The next thing I have is Choicepecs. This is trying to compensate a little bit for the lack of damage from Ninetales. I ran a couple calcs and just wanted to make sure Ninetales could live some stuff, so that's why the EVs are slightly different. They do end up changing a few calcs, but yes. This idea with Ninetales is, let's say your Focus Sash is taken, and you want an offensive Pokemon that, I don't know, like, can threaten dragons, and you reach a Tapu Bulu, and you want something more for Gastrodon, and you really want a strong spread move, I think this is a good Ninetales set for that. So, yes, this is Blizzard versus Tapu Koko. You can see it does pretty, like, a good bit more, and then, of course, it does Live Life Orb, Thunderbolt. Moonblast, you can see, will do even more than Blizzard, but it is single target, so it won't hit both Pokemon. Blizzard is generally the offensive move of your choice. Sorry, your, like, preferred offensive move when you're attacking, so that's why Blizzard, I think, is the one that I'm going to be showing most of the time. This is versus Tapu Lele. So Tapu Lele is, like, as you can see, I didn't calculate on the first one. Tapu Lele is a Pokemon that has really high base special defense, and this is versus no HP Tapu Lele. If they have max HP, it's a little trickier, but let's say they have, like, offensive Tapu Lele, and they really want to switch in to something, to your Blizzard, and so they switch in, and then they end up taking a lot more damage than they expect. So that's kind of like what the idea with Choicepecs is here. Also, Blizzard is really good when you can double target something with, like, I don't know, like, let's say you have Tapu Koko, for example, and you can, like, go Thunderbolt Blizzard. That's gonna do a lot of damage. So yes, Moonblast, as you can see, again, will do more damage in every case except when there's super effective resisted calculated. But anytime it's neutral, Moonblast will be doing more damage, so you do have that option. But yes, this is why I think Specs changes things, because versus, like, Pokemon that are not frail, but, like, more on the frail end of the spectrum, it definitely is more threatening. So yes, that's that. And then lastly, I have Calc versus Tapu Bulu, because without the Choice Specs, you can imagine it's not going to KO, but with the Choice Specs, especially after, never mind, Grassy Terrain will cancel Hail, but yes, with Choice Specs, Blizzard has a 43.8% chance to OHKO. That's if they haven't taken any prior damage. If they have taken prior damage, it has, like, an even better chance to KO. So yes, that's that. Moving on. The last that I have is ICMZ. This is, again, a situation in which case, like, let's say you want Protect on your Ninetales. Like, you want more damage, but you want Protect and Focus Sash is gone, and you want Aurora Veil. I think this is a solid choice for an item, just because Ninetales' Blizzard doesn't do that much damage on its own, but when you pair it with a Z Crystal, it means that, like, something can switch in, like, expecting to be able to take several Blizzards, and then you can hit them with the Sub-Zero Slammer, and it will, like, they will lose a lot of health. So this is versus Tapu Koko. You can see it's guaranteed OHKO, so if you're ever in a position where you really need to get rid of a Tapu Koko, like, you know, you can't afford to, like, Blizzard it, like, because it will do too much damage, you can definitely go Blizzard with the ICMZ and just OHKO it right there. I like ICMZ because once they know you have it, I feel like they're more inclined to play defensively to try and bait out you activating the Z move, and that gives you a free opportunity to set Aurora Veil. And if you can find free chances to set Aurora Veil, that's very good. Yes, this is also versus, what's this, Celesteela. So as you can see, 66%. This isn't versus bulky Celesteela. Like, they can definitely have investment, but it's still going to do a significant chunk of damage, especially when they're switching in and tending to take, like, 25%, you know? And then they end up taking 60, or they switch into a Blizzard, they take 25%, and then, like, the fact that you can do 50 to 60% next turn means that if you double it with something, you can get rid of Celesteela, which is probably one of the better counters to Ninetales, because of the fact that Ninetales is 4 times weak to Steel. So yeah, yeah, so that's kind of why I like ICMZ. And then I also wanted to show ICMZ versus Tapu Lele. This is versus max HP Tapu Lele. So Blizzard plus Hail plus ICMZ will unfortunately not KO max HP Tapu Lele, but if you can hit with, like, one more small attack, then it can. So I like ICMZ in theory. I have not tested it, guys, so please let me know how it works. But I think in theory, if you can play Ninetales, I think this Ninetales specifically, like, if you can find a way just to, like, let it get off attacks, you're going to be in a good position. So yeah, so that's that. Those are my 3 sets. Again, I feel like if you want to start with Ninetales, you should probably be starting with the first set. I think this one is definitely, like, your go-to standard Ninetales set, but yes. Okay, and then for partners, so obviously I had to mention Sandslash. I don't know if it's the most competitively viable strategy, Ninetales plus Sandslash, but they're both cool, like, new Alolan forms of traditional Pokemon, and Steel typing is really good, and Slush Rush is a great ability, doubling Sandslash's speed in Hail, so definitely you could look into Sandslash if you're interested in working, like, with a more offensive core with Ninetales and another Pokemon, because these two do not have a lot of bulk, but they honestly, like, when I was testing my team for London, people would lead Sandslash Ninetales into me, and I would just, like, struggle so much, because my team specifically was not the best versus ice types, especially when they have, like, Freeze Dry and, like, strong Rock Slides or whatever, like Life Orb boosted Iron Heads and that kind of stuff. So yeah, this is definitely a strategy that maybe could be looked into. I don't think it's, like, the most competitively viable, but I could definitely be wrong on that one. Next up we have Milotic. I like Milotic because I like a water type here because Ninetales struggles a lot versus Marowak. And also steel types in general, so I like Milotic. It doesn't do great versus Celesteela in my opinion, but it's still really good versus Marowak. Any water type could work here. I personally would probably choose Politoed if it weren't for the fact that rain cancels hail, so that's not like super helpful, but I guess it could still work in theory. I don't know. So yeah, like a water type in general, I chose Milotic because Ben Kiriakou, I believe, got top 8, top 4. Oh, I've forgotten. I've totally forgotten. I'm so sorry. He was top 4, I believe, at the London International Championships, and he used Milotic, Kartana, Ninetales. So that's kind of why I was definitely like, okay, Ben's used this. Ben is a super solid player, so I think Milotic is a good Pokemon in general, and I think it pairs well with Ninetales because it does help versus Marowak and versus Steel types a bit. So that's that. And then lastly, I like Tapu Koko. You do have to watch out a lot for Marowak, but as I mentioned, Ninetales is very weak to Steel types, and one of the prominent Steel types at the moment is Celesteela. Probably the most prominent Steel type is Celesteela. So this could also be a special set. Special Tapu Koko is definitely more popular at the moment, but yeah, I think Tapu Koko in general is like really solid with Ninetales offensively. Defensively, they're going to struggle a lot because they're both Pokemon that once they lose momentum, they just they can be in trouble. Like, you do not want these two versus Trick Room at all. But Aurora Veil and running something like Taunt on Tapu Koko could help that a lot. So, yeah, Tapu Koko, great offensive pressure, in my opinion. Pairs well with Ninetales in terms of, like, two fast Pokemon, one with a strong spread move, one with a strong single target move is very difficult to switch into. So, yeah, I do like Tapu Koko here quite a bit. So, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please make sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. I am taking suggestions for the next Pokemon that I cover. Again, I kind of don't really have a plan at the moment in terms of what I'm going to cover, but I really do appreciate you guys watching this, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Peace.